Again, hello, it's the normal playing guy, and hey, we have a lot to discuss, and we'll talk about these two in particular. So, a bunch of sub EZAs came out. Not a terrible amount to do. I'm afraid there's five of them to do, so you get nothing from this. So, just take your time to do them, but they are actually a pretty strong unit. So there's five of them, and they're all pretty good. We're going to be focusing in particular on two for this one because they're largely the same, and that's these two. These two are really good together. Absolutely fantastic, and they are crucial though that they stick together. They have two flaws for which we'll discuss, but other than that, it is a plausible workaround. I brought up the counter units because for a while these also have their EZAs and are also fairly good. But they are now just been outclassed basically by the alternate one. So, yes, they did do pretty well. I mean, they're both basically the same. But as you can see, they had no realistic stats, but they had damage reduction, and then they get the additional damage reduction after a super attack with a specific unit, Trunks or Krillin. So you have 70% damage reduction, basically. Now the fact that they've got a tremendous amount of defense, I mean, factoring in even at 55%, it's not bad having 180% on that. There has been worse. And considering it's a unit from 2017, and even the Awakening was 2020, it's not bad, not bad. So they're both about the same. So they had our 50% damage reduction, and the biggest kicker is they get an additional 30% when you do a super attack. So if you can get them to super first alongside a alongside a Kid Trunks or a Krillin, then you will have a tremendous at time. Just you'll tank anything basically. So the only downside, there's the two downsides are gotta have this, and in particular, realistically, it's going to be Trunks, right? Because Krillin's not really going to be run, but Trunks you'll likely get, and realistically, it's the Tech Trunks. So with that, and then you got a super first. So there's a few situations. For example, I've used him in the recent Red Zone stage for Kid Buu, and in the final part, well, I say final part, he does somehow transition to STR. Now, it doesn't really matter in either one. Even the fact that you've got 50% damage reduction on a 200% team, the sheer fact that if you don't get that super first, you will be insta-killed. Now, these have tanked the super to the point of taking like 70k. Now, Kid Buu will just wipe you out in one shot with a super attack. He does like a million plus. You need literally a million defense to withstand a super attack, or a million defense and guard. And these guys, they'll just get hit for like 1.5 million, no doubt. But if you super attack first, you have 80% damage reduction, plus the fact that you have a super attack effect as well. And you can properly full on tank. I kid you not, you're taking like 50 to 70k, depending on links, and supports. So again, that's just got to be the only downside. And there's situations where in that particular red zone, every rotation in the STR form, he supers slot one all the time. And he goes first and he supers first. Or he heals, attacks, and then he supers. And then you cannot survive it. So it's depending on your rotation, it is hard to say. And he lowers your defense on a super attack. So if you brought around another person, that person just won't be able to tank anymore. But outside of that, if you can get the situation to use them as intended, they are extraordinarily powerful. So they have 180%, of which there's been worse. So you have 50% damage reduction. You now get bonus attack with this. Kamehameha allies get one key 50% attack and 20% crit as the first turn, which is really nice. But here's the better thing. Key to 70% chance and a higher crit as the second attacker in the turn. And you'd never rock him in slot one because of, even these two combined is not enough. But in turn 3, you get a high chance of performing a crit, which is really nice, and 3 key. right? Now, this is just you, so that's fine. Now, considering that there's no defense in this, well, something I suppose, you want to rock him in turn 2 or 3, in slot 2 or 3. At least if you rock him in slot 2, you are getting much, much more out of it. Seriously, the 2 key rather than 1 is big. And of course, 30% crit is significantly more noticeable than 20. But more importantly, you give yourself 3 key, which really helps if you really are trying to use them as a floater. Only problem is if you use them as a floater, then you struggle to get with Trunks or Krillin on the team. So there is that. You greatly raise attack and defense, which is really nice, and a slight buff. Well, actually, not a slight buff. That's quite a lot of a buff to allies' attack. So additionals could be the way to go. And honestly, I'd say that's about right. Additionals would be huge. You could argue dodge, but then you'd be trying to say dodge would be a slot 1 unit, so you could dodge the big attack and then get the super attack in, so you can at least get this. Yeah, I can see where you're going for, but honestly, it's slot 2 or 3 as intended, especially because you get a bigger buff, and then of course you'd have a better chance of surviving. Because again, you can enter the turn with, I think, on a 200% team. I have them long since rainbowed, and you have I think they sit on about 190, 200k, depending on support, and they get 50% on top of that, so it takes them to about 300k, roughly 280, something like that. So, in which case, then with 80% damage reduction at that, it is still enough to pretty much tank anything. Trust me. But even in that red zone, but you just got to get there first. There are some. There are some so like free to play units which you can use. It's just one actually. Oh yeah. So this is the Awaken form, by the way, but it's not terrible, by the way. So it's 1-to-1 and it's pretty simple, so it might just be worth the effort. But chances are a lot of people already have him, because even when he awakened in 2020, you probably still have him. But yeah, so in terms of who he links up well with, well, of course, it's this unit, because we're about to touch on him and he basically is the same. And then the counterpart to this guy, well, he doesn't have damage reduction per super attack or whichever it is, might still just about, it will still trigger this guy. And depending on what typings you need, could be good. What we're seeing on here is we're seeing Goku family, but also in particular Super Saiyans are on here. Mainly it's Super Saiyans, so that's not too bad at all. It's quite a decent team actually that's come onto here, so that's actually not too bad whatsoever. So yeah, he's going to fit in very nicely. In particular, he's going to be really good on, say, like Gifted Warriors, Earthbred, Kamehameha, Movie Heroes, Bond of Friendship. That could be a good one. Youth could be a good one. So there's a few in there would be nice. Depending if you have this guy in particular, then you could make a case for Hybrid Saiyans as well. So or even Super Saiyans, because it would be quite a good combination. Again, it's all pending whether or not you can get that super attack off. So now the alternate is this guy. So he's going to be basically the same. 180%, 50% damage reduction, gets the extra 30% with a specific person. And again, same thing. You get keen attack, and then you get even more, and then you still get 3 key. Literally, it's the same thing. Even the supports are the same thing, right? That's it. It's literally copy and paste, literally. And this one, again, literally copy and paste. So it's additionals all the way. So yeah, it doesn't matter which way around it is. The leader skill's the same. It's just tech. But sure. So again, you'll see it. Look, it's Goku family and Super Saiyans, because it's Kamehameha. It's literally the exact same people. Even the stats are literally the same. So again, it's just something. So probably just pure additional, really, just to help maximize the greatly raised attack and defense with your damage reduction. You could argue dodge just a little bit. I certainly wouldn't say crit, because he gets crit depending on what rotation he's in. So it would just be additionals and dodge. So these two are fantastic, and it's good because the alternates were these two, and they were really good together. because you had small amount of like you had reduced damage received by 18% when there was additional oh, and of course you get a little extra when there was a trunks as well. So both of these, again, it's still a carbon copy paste, right? So yeah, that's fine. This guy did build up for several turns, and this guy, yeah, same again. So they were okay. You can use them together in Super Saiyan's Extreme Super Battle Road, which is pretty good because in those particular ones, in Stage 2 in particular, you're against Mecha Freezer and King Cold, and they're STR and physical. So, for which case you can properly crush this. Seriously, I believe this guy will just outright kill Mecha Freezer, and I think both of them could tag team the King Cold. Seriously, is these two were good when they came out, and now I'm thinking these. So, with additionals built in, potentially with certain items such as like Pilaf slash Baba to nullify the enemy super attacks, or maybe even Nurse Chi Chi just to give them an edge, would really help. So you could also possibly also choose like a Whis or a King Yama just to make them nigh on indestructible for that particular rotation, and then they would be pretty solid afterwards. But I don't know. It seems like they are good. Don't get me wrong. Both of them are really good. It's just they have those two flaws, and they're kind of big. And again, the amount of enemies you see in Red Zone, in particular, if we're talking difficult content, they'll attack a few times at first, and it will be a super attack because that's the main part of difficult content. Is they're going to hit you hard first, and it's all about the new units, and it's all about a little bit of, actually it's kind of a lot about luck in terms of where the enemy unit is placed, where your units are placed. So again, these just it's double-edged sword. It's high risk, high reward. They can perform flawlessly. Trust me. It's just they cannot take a hit prior to them super attacking, because even 50% damage reduction, you get hit for 1.5 million, and it's ridiculous. But it's amazing just how well when you super attack, you're getting 80% damage reduction and a 50% defensive buff, assuming you don't double super. And that does surprisingly make a world of difference. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. These two are huge in particular, so yeah, get them done. You'll find that they're really good for this. And again, the teams that they're on and the people that they support, there's lots here where you could stick them in individually. So that's great. And the chances are you've been playing since 2020 even, you've probably got these units. Even if they're not rainbowed, you've probably got these units. But anyway, I've been the normal playing guy and you've been a fantastic audience. But hey, you can let me know if you love him or hate him. But yes, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the other Easy A's. Thank you, bye-bye.